We got to play 007 First Light early, and boy, do we have some fucking thoughts about this game that we can't wait to share with you guys. Big thank you to IO Interactive for inviting us out to the preview event in order to play about 3.5 hours of the game, non-sequentially, and then also talk with the game's director, Martin Emborg, about the process of creating James Bond, bringing him back into the video game format for the first time in 14 years, which is fucking insane to think about.
That's weird. Ah. Where were we?
You'll notice that I'm not the only one on camera here, which is kind of crazy because I'm barely on camera as is, but if you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you probably remember my good friend Brody, who works with me on the videos on the channel and everything like that. He's probably written some of your favorite lines in the scripts on some of your favorite FilmSpeak videos. Hopefully. So he is the he's the genius behind there. We also used to host the James Bond podcast, The Words Are Not Enough. So obviously Bond is something very near and dear to us, and an integral part of the channel. So to be able to go to an event like this and experience the game in such a just, I don't know, like the location was incredible. They could not have picked a more Bondian location.
Very Art Deco, very...
Incredibly,
It's like walking into... every lounge you've ever imagined James Bond. Yeah, fantastic.
The balcony should give you an excellent view of the stage.
No spoilers. This is spoiler-free reaction, just kind of initial impressions of the game.
And then we'll do a video on the act.
We're not gonna jip you. We're gonna give you a full FilmSpeak quality video diving into this thing, because just based off of the very limited time we had with the game, there was already so much we were pulling from this thing in terms of just like the interpretation of Bond in this story, the level designs, just like some of the characters that he's surrounded with in here, and like their backstories. Like I think my biggest takeaway walking out of this was the level of detail and immersion that IO has, designed for us here is next level. There was a point where it's like right before we went to go interview the director that I got tapped, I got pulled out of the game, and I was just like, fuck, man. I'm not even in the headspace in order to talk with this man about his incredible, creative endeavor here. Like this, like post.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. Yeah, right. I think you said it perfectly, where it was like getting unplugged from the Matrix.
Yeah, that's it. Did like they're pulling the thing out of your mouth. I shouldn't do this on camera, but it really did feel, it was like a sort of a surreal experience.
Well, first of all, we should start with what we actually played. So there were 3 missions that we actually played. The first was, of course, the pre-title sequence, which I have a lot to say about that. The second was more of a training mission where it's like you and your fellow 00 recruits are going around this like facility in, do you remember the location?
It was in Malta.
It was in Malta? Yeah. And this apparently isn't even your first training mission. It's like one of the later training missions.
Yeah, I think that will surprise people, is that like, because this is obviously an origin story, they do seem to be focusing a lot on the training before you really sort of get into the meat and potatoes of the story. At least from what we saw. We didn't really get to see how extensive all that training is, but there is at least more than what we were shown of the training.
And in a way that wasn't hand-holdy. Like, to me, like you mentioned that you played it through a couple of times because it was like there was like a game within a game element of like, oh, I want to get the high score on this like course, and I like that was just like cool.
Yeah, exactly, because it's almost like you're competing against the other MI6 recruits to get the best time to get through the trial and to do it with the least casualties or the least being noticed. And I guess that will probably tie into some online component that they eventually put out, because IO loves to do these online sort of extras. And they usually are like sort of arcade style like that.
And they were emphasizing the fact that like just because the game comes out doesn't mean that they're done with the game, as is the case with the Hitman games. I think
they're still putting stuff out.
Right, they're still which they're still putting stuff out for. I think they didn't say anything to the point, but I think that we can expect a multiplayer addition to the game sometime down the road, probably in the back half of 2026, I would imagine.
And that is pure speculation.
We have literally no information to verify that. It was just solely like, that's kind of the vibe I'm getting based on just the way they were talking about additional components being added. So, that was the second mission, was the training one, and then the third mission felt like the pre-title sequence is more of like the blockbuster cinematic, but like there's a play along component to it. It's not really super intensive gameplay wise,
but much more linear.
Yeah, exactly. And then actually, if I had to compare it to anything, I would say the pre-title sequence was like playing Uncharted.
Yeah.
And then the third mission was like a typical Hitman mission, but through the with all the bells and whistles that they've kind of put together for First Light. Or, I mean, parts of it even reminded me of Assassin's Creed a little bit, which I guess, Hitman and Assassin's Creed have a similar DNA. But, and that was really cool because it was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
They said the first mission was long and like, it was like the length of a proper introductory mission, but like this one I was like, whoa, like we've just been here for a while and there was so much to do. It was like an infiltration and it was a spy mission. So like it's you as Bond using everything in your toolkit in order to, complete the task. But yeah, but I don't know, I thought that was cool. And it was a great way to tee up the game in terms of just like this is the cinematic level of storytelling you're getting from this. Here is just like the mechanics in its most pure distilled form, and then here's it all coming together and what you can expect from most of the game. Yeah, when you play the full thing.
And they did talk about this like sort of ebb and flow sort of game design, where it was they wanted to sort of have you seamlessly transition from these more linear sections into a sandbox where you could then, like in a Hitman game, just sort of explore your environment, find creative solutions to problems, to objectives. And then it would sort of naturally funnel you into another linear section that was a bit more cinematic.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me in terms of gameplay was that, and they've emphasized this across their, the promotional material they've been putting out, the Beyond the Light stuff. If you've watched those, those have been fantastic. Just a great, all-encompassing snapshot of the process of making the game.
We want stealth and combat to be on equal footing.
I think the thing was that like the way that you approach the missions is entirely up to you, but there is a heavy emphasis on like forward momentum. They emphasize this element of forward momentum where it's like, yeah, you can sit around, you can be stealthy, and you can play it like a Hitman game, but they said that it's more rewarding if you played it just as like going like a bull through a china shop, basically. And I having done a little bit of both, I have to say, like there's this section of the third. The proper mission, the third chapter that we played, where we're in this room and it's very like John Wick coded. There's just like the neon going places and on the walls and whatnot, and you're just immediately faced with this army of guys. The first time I played it, I was trying to go around all stealthily and like pick up stuff and like throw objects at people to distract them or like set their cell phones off and then do the silent takedowns. And then I got cornered and died, and I was like, you know what, fuck this. And so I just grabbed the nearest like assault rifle and just go down, and I'm just like mowing these people down. And one of my favorite parts, my favorite like mechanics of the game is the fact that like when you charge someone, you like shove them into the wall. And because these panels are all like electric, you'll shove someone into the wall, they'll start electrocuting. You'll see like the outline of their skeleton. It's fucking incredible. Like it's such a rush, and I think that's the thing that I think benefits the game is like when you're moving like that. It's and you're tackling these missions with that like momentum in mind. I'm not saying you need to go in guns blazing, but if you're playing aggressively instead of like on the defense, which I think a lot of these games, they want you to be defensive because you're an assassin. You're not supposed to be seen, and obviously with James Bond, he is an assassin. He's very good at his job. But he's also he has no aversions to being seen. It's just kind of his thing. That's why people joke about him not being a very good spy, because he
drops his name.
He'll drop his name. He's like, he'll just go in a place, he'll shoot it up and whatnot. But he gets results done. And so taking that approach to the gameplay, I mean, you really do feel the adrenaline. It's exhilarating to go through these spaces and clear them out with a mixture of stuff. And I think they've talked a little bit about this as well. But the melee combat is, oh my god,
very Arkham,
very yeah. Everyone who's a fan of like Insomniac Spider-Man, especially the Arkham games, there's like great components in the way that
it's like the balletic. It's like the fluidity of like you just sort of you'll be fighting off. People joke in like action films when it's like the henchmen come one at a time. They do not come one at a time in this. They'll mob you, and you are actually pretty well equipped to take them on as a mob. You can sort of glide between different enemies and sort of be having 4 fights at once.
The fluidity of his movements, I was just sort of like, oh, he moves around and then he's like punching this guy, or he's like slapping a book in his face, he's shoving him into the wall, he's kicking him over a ledge. The creativity when it came to the melee component was chef's kiss. It was so much fun. I gotta be honest, that was one of the things where it was like, I read about it and I had heard them talk about it and I was like, oh, cool, okay, it's just like fighting. It's like you're gonna be like Nathan Drake punching someone and then you're gonna grab a gun and you're primarily gonna use your gun.
Grapple with them.
Right, exactly. But it's like, no. This is like arguably the majority of your combat is the melee physicality and the creativity.
You don't always want to be using your gun because you're
not allowed to use your gun, so you're given the light. Yeah,
there are specific sections where you are given your license to kill, and that's only when the situation has escalated to the point where lethal force is the only recourse.
Yeah,
it's something we had to invent for this game, because he will use force if he needs to, but he won't shoot somebody who didn't actually shoot first.
And I think it's a good way of balancing out the...
Yeah, because it'd be easy to just pull out your gun and like shoot everyone, clear a room, and like boom.
And every previous Bond game has been a shooter in that way, and I do think this is a good way of letting Bond's other talents shine in a way that doesn't discourage like action, because it's a very action-forward game.
Totally, but it's also perfectly in line with the mentality of the character, which is that he is not someone to pull the trigger unless he needs to. Yeah, he doesn't kill in cold blood. I think this encapsulates that mentality beautifully.
Also, you mentioned, because you're talking about the fluidity of the combat, I do think fluidity is kind of the name of the game. Every other encounter in the game also kind of has a similar fluidity. Yeah. Right down to the bluff system.
I need to find Saunders. There's a chance the suspect is dressed as security.
There is a way to organically get yourself, hopefully, out of that situation. So that you don't break the flow of gameplay. Yeah. So you never like pulled out.
I had to pause the game and put my controller down. I was like, yes, it's actually happening naturally. The flow of events that we set out to do.
Yeah.
And this is very good about keeping you constantly in that like gameplay loop.
Right. And like, again, I compare it to something like Assassin's Creed, where like you go around collecting information and like you'll receive a piece of information, you'll go and try and use it, and like sometimes it will work and then sometimes it won't work, and usually when it doesn't work, like you said, it kicks you out of like the simulation that's going on. Whereas like here, because Bond is someone who is constantly thinking on his feet, because he's someone who like just instinctually knows how to improvise, you get that reaction out of the character. Like he'll fuck up and then he'll just kind of play it off, and maybe people will notice, maybe they won't notice, and then you'll just kind of like have to find your way to get either the item that you need to get or more information that you need to get. And so it's just like that level of flow within the gameplay I found,
and especially because there are so many other ways to complete missions too. So if you do sort of lock yourself out of completing the mission in one particular way, there are still like 5-6 other ways you can complete that mission. And so you might just stumble from one. Your objective might be, I'm gonna get the key card, and then you fuck that up, but you stumble into another way to get into that area where you needed the key card. And the game isn't like it's not like a stickler about making sure you do it its way. It's very much do it your way. If it works, it works,
and that's
which feels very Bond.
Right, that does feel very Bond. And I think that's one of the things that I think differentiates it from like an Uncharted, for example, which I know this has been getting compared to a lot. And there's a lot like the DNA. I mean, it's just Uncharted is kind of like the Naughty Dog formula is kind of like the AAA blockbuster gaming template at this point, and like that's obviously applied here, but like you said, it's narrative, and then they have these little sandboxes that you go into, and then they funnel you out of it. It's like it's very, very well designed. We got to experience some of the gadgets, not all of the gadgets. And
it had like a pre-selected loadout for us.
Right. And from my understanding, there's like so many more gadgets to choose from.
A bit like in Hitman, where you can like sort of select various gadgets and tools.
Right. Well, in that regard, that's where it reminded me of Arkham, specifically in how you can chain the gadgets with your moves. Like a lot of this stuff reminded me of like the freeze bombs that you would throw in Arkham City or Arkham Asylum or Arkham Knight or something like that. Or even like in Spider-Man, where you'd have like the web bombs and stuff like that. Like it's definitely borrowing from those games in a way that, I mean, those games you could honestly say we're borrowing from just like James Bond as like an idea, as a property, being like the granddaddy of like involving gadgets in a thing. And so like in like a mission based thing. So the fact that like Bond is now getting its turn at it, and the fact that you have like Q Branch at your disposal in order to and just building you all this cool equipment, it was a nice variety. Like there was like a pen that like made people sick, which was very like Mission Impossible, but like it was like you'd like shoot it at someone. It's almost like a blow dart, basically.
Click dart, I guess.
Yeah. And then there's like a cell phone disruptor, and then there was like then he gets to use his laser Omega watch, and
is
it's
so good. Every now and then, and obviously there's like a battery on it, so you can't just like abuse it. You have to.
Yeah, that is the other cool thing. Is like you have to charge it up essentially. Like there's a limitation to like how many times you can use that, which can be difficult when you're in like boss battles. Like there's one boss battle we won't get into like specifics, but there was a boss battle in that third level that requires you to only use your gadgets. The character is just like very formidable. You can't like approach him in a typical way. So you got to use your you know your skills as an agent, if you will, to like drop shit on him or like blow stuff. You're leveraging the environment, and that right there reminded me of the boss battles in like an Arkham game. And I was like, oh god, this is like, I've missed this. I love this so much. It's fucking great. Similarly, like if you run out of ammo, you can always like throw your gun at someone, which I found like that's funny. It's like a last resort. You just throw your gun at someone, they're incapacitated, and you can just like take them out with a physical takedown. It's just like again
very like African rundown.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. So it's like
that and like kicking all the doors in the walls.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The ways you kind of have to like get around like bad guys, and like you can kick down the doors, or you can sabotage them, cause distractions. It's like elements like that that are very Hitman. I think they implement in a way where it's like that's not the focal point of the game. It's just like it's a part of the gameplay. And again, we've been harping on the sandbox approach, but like it really does feel like they're like, hey, we made Hitman, and like you can play it this way, but also like there's a million other ways you can play it, and however you as the player want to play it, how you want to inhabit James Bond, this game is going to suit your needs like perfectly.
Which does add to that, like it's like a simulation, right? It's like it's like a Bond simulator. You get to go in there, and yes, while you're participating in a classic Bond narrative, like a cinematic style narrative with those linear sections, the sandbox sections are what sort of allows you into being James Bond. You just sort of get sucked in. It's like, I am James Bond. I'm at the gala, and I'm just like
you're doing all these incredible things.
And that I think is like kind of like a special like magic that this game has. I think also is present in those Hitman games. I think IO has just really nailed that particular kind of immersion.
You mentioned narrative. Let's talk about the story a little bit. You know, we're obviously big story people. I mean, we talk about movies, so talking about gameplay for us is actually not very common. So
we made like a 40-minute video on Quantum of Solace. I know, let's talk about narrative about anything.
No, it's true. But it's so funny that we gravitated towards the gameplay first, because it was just like
it's just new for us.
It is. Like, oh my gosh, we're just kids and kids. No. Let's just start with the pre-title sequence, which we had a feeling they were going to show us going into it. Did not disappoint. The thing that immediately struck me was that it tells you everything you need to know about this character in one mission.
He's incredibly charming and charismatic, and he's audacious. He's very cool under pressure, and of course he's insanely capable and resourceful.
All of his impulses, his instincts, his just the way he is, you get like little hints at like his worldview and attitude just from a conversation that he's having with an MI6 analyst that he happens to be like patched into, and yet at the same time they're not so refined so that the character doesn't have like room to go places. It is just like, here's the ground floor.
Agent 47 in Hitman, he plans meticulously, but Bond is not somebody who plans meticulously. He's very impulsive. You know, he just goes in and he wings it.
He's not fully James Bond as you know him.
He's not the suave connoisseur either, who knows everything about champagne and wine and fancy cars. I think that will come with age and experience.
Like, you know, saying like a Goldfinger or something like that, but this guy would become that guy if you give him enough time. There's like, even in the third mission, there's this, you see a little bit of the cynicism start to like set in, knowing what we knew about the story and like a bit of his disillusionment to the core, or not the core, but the agency and stuff like that. You really do see like he does feel like a slightly different person from when you first meet him, which I think bodes very well for the future of this series and how they're going to evolve the character in installments. Like, I think for me, I loved how it established right up front in a very slick way why he is so against authority. And it's because he asks questions. He's like, well, you're telling me to do this. I don't think I should do that. Or why am I doing this? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? What is the cause here? And he's constantly left in the dark because he's not an agent. And so you get this sense of like, well, I kind of want to know, like, I'm drawn to this thing. And this at least sounds a bit more interesting than the work I'm doing in the military, which is very much cut and dry. You're like a weapon. And even on the plane that he's on before he gets choppered into, or before their ship gets shot down over Iceland, he's by himself. He doesn't really have anyone. He's not the typical like military grunt that we're used to seeing. Like, he is someone who is different. He thinks differently. And you see how that is then recognized by MI6 throughout the course of this first mission. And that was just one of the things that's like, it's not necessarily like a lack of respect for authority or just like a rebellious teenager. It's just someone who is just like, I need to know why you want me to risk my life for something. I kind of want to know why I'm fighting for something. And if I don't believe in what you're doing, I'm gonna do what my conscience is telling me to do, what my instincts are telling me to do, even to the point where he just like straight up defies what the analyst is saying. And I thought that was a really just perfect way of establishing this character right off the bat.
I think we were talking a bit about this when we got out, and you were saying pre-title sequence, as a good pre-title sequence should be, especially an introductory one. You think about all the sort of first pre-title sequences we've had for like a debut Bond, and the best ones I think sort of capture who this Bond is, what makes him tick, what do we expect from him, just sort of personality-wise, demeanor, etc. Because it's not only introducing us to Bond as an audience, it's not only a new Bond, but a much younger Bond. It's trying to sell us on this idea that,
without being like James Bond Jr., I might add, because that was also, I get that was a concern as well. It's like, this is not like a child or whatever. This is just like,
he's just a younger man. It's just a man who is earlier in his career than we've ever seen him on screen.
Many of the aspects that you associate with James Bond is already there as innate qualities.
Who this guy is throughout the sequence, and it puts him in situations that, I don't want to say test him, but they do reveal.
I think an origin story is an interesting in for the character. Like, it's a good angle of approaching how to make like a new take on the character.
They peel back the layers, and he's in such a sort of dire situation that you really, really quickly get a firm grasp of like what this Bond is all about. And I think it is very true to, the Bond that we recognize in a lot of these other, because I mean, every version of Bond is a little different.
Since we meet Bond as a young man, the tone and the story world also needed to reflect his sort of youthful perspective.
The thing with Patrick Gibson's portrayal is that it kind of reminded me of what they were trying to do with like Eggsy in the Kingsman movies. A lot of the kind of setup for this, from like the MI6 team, the recruiting, to some of the stuff that happens a little bit later that we can't really get into, and the roles some people play reminded me of
training,
right, the training and like his fellow classmates and whatnot. Reminding me of the Kingsman stuff, on top of the fact that there is this undercurrent throughout the film, this idea of exploring classes and Bond's disdain for elitism and how he differs from them, even though he is, surrounded by all these like lavish things, like this lifestyle that is very elitist and indulgent. But he himself is not those things, which puts him in an interesting position where he starts to kind of, I don't know, he's rubbing up against like these wealthy people who have no soul, who don't care about the people beneath them. I believe, and there's nothing in the game that necessarily says this, but I believe the reason he joined the military in this was solely based out of necessity. It was the fact that he had nothing else in his life. I mean, if we're going off of the orphan kind of origin, which we don't actually know about in the game.
Yeah. Well, we do. Did you find the photo?
Oh, the mountain climbing.
Well, there's the mountain climbing gear. There's also a photo. At one point in the game, you were exploring James Bond's apartment.
Yeah.
And there's a photo by his bed of his parents the day before they died.
Oh, okay. So he is an orphan. Okay.
So
they're
it's
keeping
literally
that
the
core
exact
element.
same origin. Yeah.
So again, someone who is alone, who doesn't have family, who is basically forced into the military out of circumstance. Obviously, that guy is going to have a very different view of this whole system than the people who are, calling the shots, or the people who are more gung ho about it.
Right. Which I think is also like a really interesting thing about just like James Bond as a character generally. I mean, you've got like James Bond kind of straddles this like line between being, a gentleman sort of, symbol of refined culture and a working class guy. Not that James Bond is ever like blue collar,
right?
But there is. I mean, he's a guy who works. He works for the government, right? He has a government job, and it's very, despite the fact that, I mean, Fleming always made a point of the fact that when he's not on assignment, it's a very unglamorous job. He just has a desk job where he writes reports and is bored out of his mind.
Yeah.
And has clashes with his boss who, maybe gives him an assignment that he's not very happy about, and et cetera. So, like, there's that element of it, and then there's the element of, like, the fast cars and the beautiful, clothing and the cool watches and all of that.
He is solely drawn to them out of necessity, or as a work perk, as you will. Like it is, if it wasn't for the job, he wouldn't be, using or indulging, for lack of a better word, in these things. And I thought that was such an insightful and true statement about James Bond as a character, and it showed me that he understood the character.
What is the je ne sais quoi that makes it Bond?
Yeah.
Maybe this is like for fans, maybe this is a little ho-hum, but the fact that he doesn't really care about fast cars or anything.
Yeah. Especially since it is very easy to sort of just look at the surface and say, James Bond is a man who, wears nice clothes, drives fast cars, has like expensive taste. Therefore, that must be him.
Yeah. He needs something that goes fast for him to solve his, for him to win.
Yeah.
He doesn't care if it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Like, to him, a gun is a hammer.
Yeah.
And I like that about him. Like he the way that he inhabits this elevated world of luxury is very instrumental.
Yeah.
And he's on the job. And in some respects, that's what makes him cool.
Which is incredibly Fleming. The reason I'm thinking of this is because of that. They tap into the Fleming melancholy of the character. Yeah. Like at the beginning, he's isolated, he's alone. Like there's this almost like ethereal kind of vibe. The first shot of Bond, it feels like he's like, I don't even know, just like communing with like a goddess in the water. Like it's very. It sets the stage in a way that I was not expecting. Like
it looks like a visual
something like that in like God of War, like fucking Assassin's Creed, or something with that actually involves those like kind of supernatural elements.
It looks like something out of like a title sequence.
Totally.
It feels almost abstract in that way, and yet they found a way to like contextualize it in the actual world of the story.
Yeah.
And to your point, you sort of mentioned Bond's quick wittedness and his intelligence, and I really do love that that's an aspect of, because you sort of talk about in those older films, it sort of went away over time, but the idea that James Bond just kind of knows everything, he knows a little bit about everything anyway.
So I think he's someone who spends his time reading, and kind of he knows a lot about everything, and sometimes that's a thing that gets him out of a pickle, like in that example.
It doesn't make him an expert in everything,
right,
but he just has a general awareness of so much.
In our version, it's book knowledge. He's not experienced in the way that a seasoned Bond to be.
I mean, he really does sort of start playing the role of an MI6 agent.
Yeah, he does,
because it's being asked of him, and he's smart enough to sort of know, even though they're not giving me what I want in terms of information, I understand that they wouldn't be asking me to do this unless it was of vital importance.
This is the element of him that's the gambler that I think kind of comes in. And he's not like a reckless gambler. He's not someone who's just going to like you know, like he's a smart gambler.
You know, you're doing the cost benefit analysis of all of these decisions,
and it helps you understand the psychology of the character in a way that that feels very.
You start doing it intuitively,
right? Yeah,
by like hour
it's
3, by hour 3, it's like, well, I would just do this way because Bond would do it that way, and I am Bond. Why not?
Right, which is really that. I think that's part of the fun of James Bond in a video game format, specifically the way that IOI has decided to do it this way.
Yeah.
And being there with him as he goes through all these trials and things to mature into becoming 007 is just a very interesting journey to be on.
Like getting into the psychology of the character.
He's a very accomplished guy already, just simply because he's a hungry mind. I think he's a bit of a loner. I think he's someone who's never found his people, as it were. So he's always been a little bit of an outsider, as you also see in the opening, where he's with the SAS team.
He not only is interested in MI6 as just like a way out from the life he's currently in, a way to find community of people or whatever, but it affords him an opportunity to change the system from within, which is very much in line with what they were trying to do with Daniel Craig, which was stuff that like that dynamic between him and Judi Dench's M, I thought represented that really well. And I think the way this is going to differ is that Judy's M and Craig's Bond, it was a case of she was doing everything by the books, like prior to Daniel Craig's Bond. She was not someone who was really deviating too much, because she already was had a microscope on her by being a female M. So when Daniel Craig's Bond comes in and he starts shaking things up, she sees a lot of potential in it. I mean, she sees the danger of it, and I think she
resisted at first.
The unorthodox nature of his approach, the reckless nature of his approach, I think scared her a bit. But she also saw that, one, he gets results, and then also like there is something driving him here in a way that she was like, okay, he can be used to better the agency. And now fast forward to First Light, I feel like they're doing a similar sort of thing, only this time M and Bond are kind of on equal footing per se. Like she is being undermined as just being a placeholder in the agency, and people aren't really taking her seriously, and she sees it as an opportunity to shake things up, to do things differently and better, and Bond obviously being a call that she makes in order to bring him in, and him not necessarily wanting to do things by the book, and how that rattles the establishment people. But ultimately, I think what the story's going to come to is that there's probably going to be a little bit of a disillusionment with him, but there's going to be but I have to try.
And then that's an aspect of the books that I think has been adapted to, a lesser extent. We do get the maternal relationship with Judy and Craig, and a bit of the paternal thing with Connery and Bernard Lee. But even still, because of that age difference and I guess the paternal aspect of those relationships, there is still an element of them being there's a distance between them. And I love that this game, at least again, we haven't seen much of M, but based on what we've heard and based on sort of the way the game is framing Bond, there is a potential, I guess, for them to have this relationship between this Bond and this M be much more sort of, let's work together, let's use each other. I have a position of authority, you are kind of a loose cannon in a way that really this organization needs. We agree on the objective, let's just go at it, even if it's a messy process.
Well, even down to the point where the pre-title sequence ends with him saying basically the analyst saying hey, you can't do this. He's about to blow up the crash site or whatever, and the analyst is basically saying hey, you can't do this, and he's like, well, I'm not MI6, and then he blows it up, and it's yes, it is true, he is not MI6, but I also think it's indicative of his mentality of just he's not going to be what's come before. This is something different.
He's nobody's errand boy.
Right. And I think that's on top of just being narratively interesting is this guy trying to change the institution. It's a great origin point for Bond, for this version of Bond. It's a great way to reintroduce us to this character.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Usher in a new age that's exciting and appealing to younger people as well as older people.
That absolutely. I think in terms of, we talked a bit about this after after leaving this experience, how much this feels like a modern version of Bond.
Yeah.
Right. We've got not like the Craig films aren't modern. It sort of started in the post 9/11 era, and by the time we get to No Time to Die, Daniel Craig is in his 50s at that point, and he no longer is like the embodiment of the now in the way that he was in 2006, and this feels like Bond of the 2020s. An era of deep mistrust of authority, of the government, no matter what country you live in. People really are questioning the way we have everything set up. Which Bond has always sort of spoken to those ideas, but to have a Bond that is more explicitly kind of I am going to be a disruptor. I'm going to be a force for change.
In a good way.
In a good way, right? In a way that the dogma surrounding the way that things have always been done is leading to kind of a rot inside of the agency. That I think speaks to the moment, and then on top of that, you just have the style of it is very modern. The way Bond talks, the way Bond has these interpersonal relationships with his peers, Moneypenny, the way that relationship has been reinvented here.
On top of pulling from Moneypenny in the Craig films and that relationship, even down to the point where it's she's got a boyfriend and Bond's calling her and being well, fuck this guy, dump him. What are you doing? You have a life outside of me? Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
And exactly. Taking these elements, building on what they have done previously to update Bond. It becomes a dirty term sometimes when you talk about updating the character.
Right, because you risk losing the essence of it. And this, I think the thing that that IOI has managed to do with this game, at least so far from what we've seen, and honestly, I'm pretty sure we'll feel this way by the end of the game, is they've kept the core of the character intact. There have been slight changes here and there, but the fundamentals of the character remain the same, and it's the world around him that he's navigating that is different, and he's facing different threats that are, that exist in the world we currently live in. And these are all reasons why Bond is a timeless character, which is why we've always, and we're not going to get into it, but why we've always rejected the idea of a period piece Bond, because then you cede ground to people who think that Bond can only exist in that period of time. It's just regressive when Bond has always been just contemporary of the moment. We just look back at those films and we're like, oh, the spy craze of the 60s and whatnot, because espionage was just a big thing at that point in time, but espionage is still present today. It's just done differently. So anyways,
no, exactly. I do think that's an important point, that when talking about this, the way this game reinvents Bond, and why doing it as an origin felt really necessary, because you are sort of building Bond from the ground up for a modern audience, for a modern context. Roger Moore was in the 70s a modern version of Bond, in the same way that Dalton was a modern version of Bond in the 80s, in the same way that Brosnan was a modern version of Bond. And they're all, now we look back and they're like, they're not modern anymore. But they were at the time. And the literary Bond was also modern in the 50s, right? This character has always been written to reflect his moment.
The decades of Bond, they each have their own charm.
Right back to the Fleming, right? Fleming was not writing period pieces. He was writing, on the pulse, contemporary thrillers. And that's what this is, just in a 2020 context, with a character who feels true to that Fleming character while also feeling like someone that you could see out and about. In a, which is what a spy should be, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
To be someone
absolutely.
that kind of resembles the world around him. Because as much as Bond is a bad spy, he's a very good spy. He's he's blending in.
Exactly.
He's good at it. He's unassuming he's assuming in an unassuming way. I do think that they nail this. The way he dresses, the way the world looks, there's a very it just feels very very
of the moment.
Modern.
Of course.
IOI has been very good about that, even in those Hitman games. Honestly, it ups the ante for Bond 26, because
I do agree. I do think that this
feels
does.
definitive.
It does. It does. It feels like this is, I mean, you know, whether or not like this was always the plan in order to kickstart, you know, obviously I think this was always going to come out before Bond 26, but because of the change in ownership of Bond,
right,
this is now like, this is firmly just like starting a new era of this franchise in a way that we have not seen before. Like it's not just the you know, changing of the guard of actors or whatnot. Like it is a complete, just, it's going to be some kind of reinvention for the franchise in a way that we haven't seen since the beginning of it. So and for this to be the first one out the gate, for it to make such a confident statement, for it to just kind of succeed on simply doing their own thing. I don't think they were necessarily concerned with the films or the books. Like I think they used, there was obviously reference points in there. Like even talking with Martin, he loved the Anthony Horowitz books, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there were just things subconsciously that he was pulling from something like Forever and a Day.
Exactly.
And that kind of speaks to the approach of this whole game, which is that there are obviously like homages to stuff like GoldenEye or like there's, what was the one?
There was like a little like the Easter egg of like you can find when you get to the gala, you'll see it when you get there. There is, if you look around, there's a little flyer for a cellist, and it's Cara Malovi. It's not obvious. It's like KM, and it's a blonde woman with a cello.
But it's like little details like that that are rewarding for people who are fans of this.
And I think it just shows that they are deeply invested and immersed in Bond, even if they aren't going out of their way to, you know, homage it every 10 seconds,
right? And
which is good, because you don't want Bond to be derivative.
It's not like a Member Berries kind of journey.
This is not an MCU film.
No, it's not an MCU film. It's very. This is classy, and the way that is done is classy.
Oh, we're gonna get crucified now.
And in the way that I think that they were just kind of instinctually pulling from all these references. That reminded me of Tenet, where it was just like Tenet's a Bond film, quote unquote, because it was Christopher Nolan riffing on just like the films that he grew up watching, like The Spy Who Loved Me and everything like that, and that the feeling that gave him. And there are moments that feel like you've seen them before in other Bond films, but they're not like one-to-one. And I think the same is true of this. We're like, okay, maybe they'll have a QT moment here or there where it looks like he's plowing through something like he did like the tank in GoldenEye or whatever. But for the most part, it's just ideas that come from people who have lived with this property for a long time, who are fans of it, who get it, and they're just like, okay, what's our spin on it? And you get it. And so I think that is the right approach to creating a new starting point for Bond in the 2020 or you know, Bond post Amazon purchase in this new era, because really this is like they're almost like starting a new timeline, right? Where it's like everything that has come before may have happened in some capacity, but it's like we're just going to kind of do our own thing, and we're going to create a new beginning and for Bond, and then evolve him throughout the course of that. And you really feel that while playing the game. Ultimately, the big takeaway from our experience here is that not only is this just like everything that I personally, and I'm sure you as well, have ever wanted from a Bond video game, but it makes me more excited for the future of Bond, and it ups the ante for what Bond 26 needs to do in order to capture this level of just like excitement.
If I was Stephen Knight and I saw that pre-title sequence, I'd be checking
rewriting my own
cues.
exactly.
I'd be like, okay, gotta make sure this is hitting on every single page, because that pre-title sequence
it's incredible.
is an all-timer.
It's incredible.
Our focus was to tell a great story and then deliver on you being able to, on the sticks, be James Bond in all the facets of what that means.
I had high expectations for this game, just given IOI's track record and like everything we had previously seen of First Light. But everything that we experienced at this preview event just like it blew all of our expectations out of the water. Like it was truly an incredible experience, and I think you guys are gonna really dig this game. You're gonna play it, you're gonna love it.
I mean, our focus has been on delivering the best possible Bond experience for games.
A lot of meat on the bone with this one. Anyways, this is fucking great. Thanks, IOI. You guys fucking crushed it.